Okay, so module 4, we're going to be looking at exercising the sheet metal design portion of SolidWorks. And we're going to do that through the design of and actually reverse engineering a can crusher. Okay, and now it might not seem all that big of a deal, but what's nice about this can crusher is that all the parts are created using sheet metal. And so I thought it's a great opportunity to kind of be able to get a look at a couple different types of parts, and then also be able to, utilize the sheet metal items that we have in SolidWorks to give you a little bit more expanded experience on some of the functionality. So as we look here, you're going to notice that Module 4 has our learning plan. We'll get back to that in just a second. As I have the recordings, I'll be populating these out here in the session recordings. And then we are going to have 4 assignments. Right now, there's 2 released to you because I'm kind of just putting in the little details on the last 2. The first 2 are going to be tutorials. So we're going to have 4A and 4B. And those are going to be 2 tutorials to introduce you to the functions and the commands and the features in the sheet metal area that you're going to need to do our project. Okay, so those are going to be the first things you do. And then down here, and I know you don't see those, but you can see them on my screen because they're just not released yet, is you are going to be submitting for me the screenshots for the models that you create for the can crusher. And that means every one of the parts minus any hardware. Okay, I don't want to see any hardware being modeled, just the parts, if you would, that would be custom. And then you're going to also put it together in an assembly, and then you're going to be submitting the assembly. Notice there are no detailed drawings here, okay? I don't know that anybody's going to be super disappointed in that, but I think we're just kind of at that point where we've done a lot of practice on details and dimensioning and tolerancing. And I think here now, I just want you to focus on the modeling and the functionality of the SolidWorks portion of the sheet metal portion of SolidWorks. So let's take a peek here. So these 2 are going to be to come. So there's going to be a total of 4 assignments, but 2 of them out there are released, and we'll talk about those this evening. So if we go to our learning plan, you're going to notice here that I'm really not going to be doing a lecture demo so much because I guess I look at this in 2 ways. Number one, when you're out in industry and you're working on stuff like SolidWorks, especially when you've got some experience behind you, you're going to come upon different things that you're going to experience that you're just going to kind of have to figure out yourself. Now, I am not leaving you by yourself. I can certainly help you out, but I also want to foster that ability in you to not be afraid of kind of doing exactly that, figuring it out yourself, maybe looking a little deeper. And what I like about these tutorials is that I'm not just showing it to you anymore. You're kind of, working through the steps. If something doesn't quite work, you can back up a little bit and kind of work through it. And then again, I'm here to help you. But it seems like the tutorials that I did for the last ones, those worked out really nice to just kind of get used to the what's going on with the functions of the features and things like that, rather than me trying to point out each and everything. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm hoping that you like that. So what I've done is there are 2 tutorials here. The first tutorial is going to be a post cap tutorial, and the second one is going to be a form tool tutorial. So I want to look at each one of those. Now, there are the PDFs here for you to utilize, okay? So whether you're virtual or you're in the room, those are there for you. But I kind of have them underneath here in their hard copy that I ripped out of my book. So I'm going to pull this up for a second, and I'm just going to kind of show you what each one of these tutorials, if you would, is what you can expect. So take a peek here. All right. So the first one is going to be this post cap, okay? And what you're going to be creating, I'm going to go to the next page here. You're going to be creating this part right here. So there's a couple different, I think they're called edge flange bends that we're going to be doing, okay? And then there's going to be some holes that you put in there. And you're going to be kind of going through the process. They're going to be having you lay out and, pick a gauge of metal. They're going to be having you, look at the different settings in there and such, okay? So it's really good information. And you're going to be working through, and the tutorial isn't terribly long, but it does a really nice job of, getting everything in there for you. Now, once you get to the end, all right, which is here, right at the end here, you're going to have a completed model, okay? You're going to have one in its bent form, okay? But then you're going to also have it in its, you're going to have the ability to show the final flat layout. Now, final flat layouts are important in sheet metal because this is, if you would, the blank and how we have to figure out how much material we need. So it's going to start in this form, and then we're going to have to cut, put the holes in, and then we're going to have to bend it, right? But this is nice as an end, but this is essential for actually getting material ordered and such, okay? So what I want you to do when you hand in, you're going to notice on this first assignment, I am having you, so if I go to assignment 4A, which is the post-cap tutorial, you're going to notice when you hand in, I want a screenshot, kind of our traditional screenshots of the model in its bent form with the design tree. So I can see that there. And then I also then want a second screenshot of it in the flat layout form. Okay, so I can kind of see that you have both going on there. All right. Now, again, this is going to, really emphasize kind of those functionalities, how to get started on a sheet metal part. And this is also going to be primarily how you're going to do all of the bends and stuff on our can crusher. Quite honestly, I only used flange or edge flanges for my modeling. So that's our first assignment. Okay. The second assignment that is here, and I'll go back to the learning plan. This is going to be creating a form tool, a metal form tool. So what is a form tool? I'm going to go underneath my camera and on our can crusher. All right. And I'm hoping this comes across. All right. And I think you'll be able to see it. So you're going to notice that we have parts of, our sheet metal that are going to be just flat. Okay. But then there are times where we want to, and I'm hoping you can see these are these little bump outs, if you would. Okay. These are what we have to form. And what they do is they give stiffness to, for instance, this handle that we have that's going to actually be actuating and pulling down the can crusher. Okay. So by having this in here, this is what we would call a form. But we have to create a form tool in order to create it. All right. And then the material, it's going to, if you would, simulate pressing into the material and then bumping that out. So this would be the cavity side. And then this would be, kind of that bump out side. Okay. So on here, on this project, you're going to be creating 2 form tools. Actually 3 form tools. I forgot. You get to do 3. Aren't you excited? So there's 2 for this handle, a short and a long. And then I know it's not easy to see, but maybe you can see it. I'm going to try. But when you look at the side of this outside portion, there is another form where we bump out kind of like a reverse countersink, if you would. So it's countersunk on the inside here, but it bumps it out so that we can get an offset here. So rather than putting, for instance, a washer in between here or a spacer of some sort, this actually pushes the material out. So it's then going to be able to function the way it's intended to. And you'll kind of get the idea of why they do that in that case. So you will have 3 form tools that you can create. And by doing that tutorial, that introduces you to that process throughout. Okay. So those 2 tutorials you're going to want to do. And then once you get the form tool done, what you're going to be doing is on the very last page of the form tool. So this is going to be our form tool that we create. Now, I reference the colors, okay? So if I go to SolidWorks here, let me go to SolidWorks. Let me see, come on. There we go. This is the form tool that you're going to be creating. There is a blue, a yellow, and a red section. The blue is what we call our stopping face, okay? The yellow is going to be kind of like the formed edges. Like if you would on ours, that I called it kind of that bump out, if you would. And then the red is going to be any material that you want taken away or cut out. Okay. So when you use this, okay, if we go back underneath here, what you're going to do is this form is going to then be used to create this. I don't know what they call it. I think they call it a button. And then it's got some cutouts on it. Okay. So you go from this form tool, you have to create that. And then you're going to be putting it onto just a flat 2.5 by 2.5 sheet of, just plain sheet metal. And then you're going to be handing in for me this view with the design tree and then that it worked. okay, over here. So this is a separate piece. So what you're going to do is you're going to create, you don't even have to create a part number, just start a part. You don't even ever have to save it if you don't want to. I just want to see the result that your form tool worked, okay? So this you make, and then it's going to be part of your design library, this form tool, and then you're going to pull it up and you're going to use it to create that form, okay? So that's what you're going to be handing in. So one of each of these. And that, if we go to that second assignment, you're going to notice that it tells you that same thing. So you're going to upload screenshots of your the form tool with the greenish, I guess greenish, bluish, yellow, and the red colors. And then you're going to do that form tool being used and in its final form on just a flat rectangular sheet of sheet metal to the dimensions that we see there. Okay. In the tutorial, it says that step is optional. I want you to do that. That just kind of proves out that it worked as it was intended to do. Okay. So, so that's where you really want to start with this sheet metal, because those two things are going to get you familiar with the things that you're going to be using to do the can crusher. Now, let's talk a little bit about the can crusher. I will be talking probably a little bit more. I don't want to give this all to you because I want to let you get settled in and kind of figure it out, because I feel like sometimes if I give too much information all at once, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and that's okay. I totally understand that. But I do want to talk briefly about the can crusher, because some of you might start that sooner than later. But I will talk more specifically on Thursday. So I'm going to go underneath here. Now, there is no tutorial for the can crusher. How the can crusher is going to be, looked at. I don't know if I can, okay, there we go. I think that's pretty good. We've got the can crushers. I've got 8 can crushers here in class. Yes, we are going to have to share, which also means that they can't leave WCTC, okay? So here in class is going to be where you're going to want to get the information. Now, that doesn't mean that, for instance, you can come, you can do all the measurements, take pictures, all that kind of stuff. And then if you wanted to finish it, offsite, that's totally fine, okay? But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating each one of the parts here. So there's a main body, okay, that would be like hung on the wall. Okay, then you've got your top, like, I don't know, I'm going to call it maybe the moving platform, if you would. Okay, so that part is a sheet metal part that fits in the middle there. And then we've got the bottom, and this one is stationary, where the can would be, sitting on. And then we're going to have 2 sides to the handle. There's this side and there's this side. These are mirror images. And because we have the form tools that are going to be on here, they have to be 2 separate part numbers. They're not reversible. Okay. So, anyway, so it takes a little bit of thinking to put that one together. I don't know. It took me just a little bit. I was like, wait a second, this isn't the way I wanted it. And then I had to go back and do it again. So it's good. And then there are 2 arms on the side here that connect each one. Now, on the short arms here that do the connecting, okay? And again, in the classroom, it'll make a little bit more sense, and I'm hoping it kind of resonates. There's this rounded corner here. And what this does is you're going to notice that as we look at this, bracket, it's straight here, and then it goes down, okay? Now, what I found was there wasn't a standard toolbox form tool to create this end, okay? And when I was messing around with it, I'm like, in the end, it doesn't really matter if it's rounded or not. So what I ended up doing is I ended up creating the part just a little bit differently. And I'm telling you this for the reason of, if you want to make some slight design changes, as long as it doesn't interfere with how this is operating, I'm okay with that. So I'm going to open up, and I think can crusher. Pretty sure it's this one. So when I look at this part, notice I did not do the curve on it. I just did, it's called a jog. It's this one right here. And I did it at a 45-degree angle, still gets the job done. It just doesn't have a half circle on it. That's it. So if you want to do that very same thing, and I'm going to tell you, unless you're like, no, I want to figure it out, I want to make it that rounded corner, go right ahead. Okay. But I spent enough time as I wanted to spend on it. And then I was like, I'm going to do this. And you end up with the very same result as far as functionality, as far as, the height and all that kind of stuff and how it's going to work. So that type of stuff, as long as you're utilizing, items that you see here and you're still in that sheet metal mode, you cannot make this as just a solid part and machine it. That I won't let you do. It has to be a sheet metal way of doing it. Okay. A function in here, and jog was how I got that done. Okay. It's not one that's in your tutorial, but I have all the confidence in you that you can be like, yeah, I can figure that out. It's really not that hard. It actually was pretty easy once I did it. So I just wanted to let you know that if you kind of see other little, ways that you want to change things up, that's totally fine. So that was one, if you would, and, a slight change in the design that I did. So again, instead of having that rounded curve there, okay, I just went straight across and did a jog. Okay. So feel free to use that on both ends. The last thing I want to talk about is the handle. Okay. There is a curve here. All right. And there's a length to it, obviously, but I don't want you to get too caught up in it. Like, what exactly is that radius? This is what I'm going to tell you. Make it look good. That's it. Okay. Because operationally, this is just to be out there a little bit. Functionally, it doesn't really have a huge effect on it. Okay. You really could make it straight if you wanted to. Put a little curve in it. I think it looks kind of nice, right? But I don't want you to be like, how do I measure exactly how that is? Make it look good. That's all I want. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? And then thirdly, this handle. This handle, when you get up to it, there is like a sponginess here, okay? And then it's over the top of a rod that's in between. And they've got threading that comes through on either side and a nut on either side. I changed the design by just having a metal cylinder in the middle here. I have on mine, and I'll show you in just a bit, I have threaded holes going into that cylinder, and it's about this diameter. It's just a metal cylinder. And then I put button head cap screws on either end and called it done. Okay. So you don't have to try to find, spongy material unless you want to. Okay. You don't have to, duplicate how they're putting it here. So again, it's a threaded rod, and that's part of that middle part. And then there's nuts on the end. I just kind of did it a little bit different. So I'll show you that as well. To my assembly. Okay. So what I did here is this. So here is that rod, okay? And it's just literally a solid cylindrical piece, and it is threaded on the inside, okay? Or two threads. There's a thread here and a thread on this side, I think about a 1/2 inch deep on each one. 1/4 socket head, or 1/4 button head screw is then on the end of each one of these, okay? Rather than the nuts.
Are we modeling that, or
Modeling what?
that handle?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
no,
Everything
no,
here is modeled. Yeah.
no.
Hardware. Oh, no, good. Yeah, no, this is not a sheet metal part. That handle, this cylindrical feature right here. So it's a machined part is what it is. So if I look at if I open it up, yeah, it's not sheet metal. Open. That's I guess the one piece on here. It's got the socket, or the threads that are going in. I think it's about a 1/2 inch or 3/4, one of the two. I put a little chamfer on the end here, and this is my handle. Okay, that's it. If you wanted to knurl the handle, you could. I mean, if you want to make it super fancy, but you can go ahead and utilize that same design. And then, oh, and lastly, so oopsie, I have it open already. As I showed you on the assembly, I use button head cap screws on the end here. So that's from the toolbox, okay? But the other ways that they're keeping this together are rivets, okay? And unfortunately, there's no rivets in the toolbox, okay? So what I did was I went out to McMaster-Carr, okay? Just kind of a basic industrial hardware store, if you would. Have you guys ever heard of McMaster-Carr? Okay, it's a website, a ton of different parts, and I looked up rivets, and I found rivets that would be for the size that I was looking for. It told me what the through hole would be that it fits into, and it gave me the final sizes of the rivet that would fit, okay? So you have to investigate that, okay? So you have to figure out for the thickness that you have here, what's the rivet that you have. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to be making a bill of material, okay? You're not going to be ballooning this. We're not doing that. But you do want to represent your rivets so that they make sense, so that it's something that is, you know, if you would take it that step further or somebody would want to buy them, I want you to look up on McMaster-Carr, what are they? You know, what are the sizes here? And then what I did is I just modeled 2 different sizes because that's what I found was the case here. So if I go back, oopsie, if I open my first rivet, I didn't call it a part number. I did call my other parts part numbers, but in the end, because we're not going to be making drawings, you don't have to, but it's just kind of what I do. So this is my first rivet. Now, does this physically look like this? No, but it represents it so that in the assembly, I can see that that's the hardware that I had. So this is the short rivet, if you would. And then my other one was a long rivet. So it's a little bit longer to go through. And this is the one that's on the bottom, okay, on either side. So that's how I did the rivets. Because again, they don't have anything in the toolbox for those, okay? And these aren't sheet metal. These are just modeled parts, okay? So I just wanted to kind of give you a brief introduction. At the moment, does anybody have any questions? So the model here is one of the PDFs that, or not PDFs, the screenshots that you have to show me. So you'll kind of make this as big as possible, scooch it over, get your design tree in here as well. And then each one of the individual parts, okay? So it looks like there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish parts, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, and form tools. That's right. You're gonna have a couple form tools in there. So those would be included in the models as well. Okay. So that's just a kickoff. I'm going to do a little bit more. I do have some things that I want to present to you as the details come out. But again, I feel like that's just kind of extra information that right now you're probably not able to take in. So we will look more closely on Thursday as like a part 2, if you would. And I'll kind of, you know, run through each one of the parts and show you how I created them and, you know, give you some insights on how to approach. Okay. So, but best place to start is going to be on the 2 tutorials first, and then when you're ready to start measuring and stuff like that on the can crushers, then they're here for you to use. Because we only have 8 can crushers in the room, then I just ask that when you're not using it, bring it back up so somebody else can use it. Or if you notice that somebody else is needing it, maybe you can work together in partners to kind of, you know, have them available. So please make sure that we're you know, working together on that. And then there's also I think there's plenty of instruments. For those who are virtual, you'll have to make at least 1 trip here to probably do that within the next 2 weeks, a week and a half here. Okay. All right. Any questions? I'm excited for you guys. It's good. Okay. And I'm gonna see, I didn't open up the chat box tonight, so I don't see anything in there. But as things come up, please let me know. And the rest of the time is for you to work. Okay.